Hi, this is Divya Prakash, and today we are going to discuss about transport of radioactive materials. This is a very important topic for practicing RSOs and those who are going to appear for some examination or for some interview. Because every time the questions are asked from this topic, so this is going to be a very interesting topic, and there are a lot of things are going to be discussed in this presentation, and it is going to be a long presentation because it gives a complete knowledge about all the aspects which are involved during the transportation of any radioactive material. So whenever any radioactive material moves from one place to the other place, there are two people who are responsible for a safe transport of radioactive materials. One, the RSO who is sending the consignment, and the one RSO who is receiving the consignment. In both the cases, both has got their different duties. So what are they supposed to do, how the packaging should be done, what are the labels should be put, this all the things we are going to discuss in this presentation. So topics which will be covered in this presentation that will include the regulatory frameworks and its objectives. The regulations do not apply in certain conditions that we are going to see, because if a very small amount of radioactivity is being transported, or if radioactivity is being shifted from one place to the other place within the organization, then those conditions, these regulations will not be applied. So there are a number of other conditions so that we are going to see in this presentation. There are different terms which are used during the transportation, and what are those, because they are not in the common terms. So what are those and how they are defined, that we are going to see. We are going to see the limits for the transport of different radioactive materials, the type of packages, the classification of packages, the transport index and its limits. We are going to see the emergencies during transport and its handling. We will see UN numbers, the class of radioactive material within the hazardous material, the duties of RSO who is receiving the radioactive materials, and the certain questions we'll be discussing at the last when we will be about to finish the presentation, so that we will be coming to know which kind of questions can be asked from this topic. So let's begin. When there is a transport of radioactive materials, so there are three things involved. First is safety, the compliances, and the risk mitigation. Means when we are transporting, it should be safe to transport. We are following all the regulations, so it includes compliances and the risk mitigation. So if there is any emergency is occurring, so what are the risk mitigations are involved during that? That these three things are involved whenever there is a transport of radioactive material. So the key issues in transporting radioactive material includes the regulatory compliances, the radiation exposure, how much exposure is coming out from that package, the emergency preparedness, the contamination control, the vehicle suitability, which vehicle we are supposed to use, packaging integrity, the labeling and the documentation, the security of material, the training of personnel, and monitoring and inspection. These all are issues involved when we are transporting the radioactive material. The regulatory frameworks include the IAEA guidelines, the national guidelines, and there can be some regional regulations also. The IAEA, which says about the transport of radioactive material, is the SSR 6 document, which was published in 2018. Last publication was that time only. And there are different national regulations in India. It is Atomic Energy Regulatory Board. They have published their document in last 2016. And there can be some regional regulations like some European countries. For European countries or some American states may have some different regulations. So those all the things are to be followed. The scope of regulatory frameworks includes the land, transportation with the land, the water, and the air transport. And these regulatory frameworks are guided by the United Nations documentation on transport of dangerous goods. There are different kind of dangerous goods which are transported with various routes which we discussed. So those are all covered by the United Nations document which says about transport of dangerous goods. There are different classes of dangerous goods that we will be saying during the presentation. So these regulatory frameworks are designed based on these two documents, Transport of Dangerous Goods Volume 1 and Volume 2. And there is one more document which says a manual of tests and criteria, which defines what all the tests have to be carried out for those packages for different things which are used during the process. So these all are designed, the regulatory frameworks are designed based on these three documents. The objective of these regulations includes the containment of radioactive contents, the control of external dose rate, prevention and criticality, and the prevention of damage caused by heat, right? Moving next to we'll see that regulations these regulations do not apply in certain conditions, like the radioactive material integral to the means of transport. Means if it is a part of transport in certain airport wings, which has got wings, aircraft has got wings. So there are certain materials which are used in the wings which are radioactive, but their concentration is very less. But since they are radioactive material and it is a part of the mode of transport, so it cannot be excluded. So these regulations do not apply in that conditions. Second is radioactive material moved within an establishment under appropriate safety regulations without using public road or railways. If there is no any public road or railways being used and it is moved within the organization under the supervision of RSO, so that time these regulations will not be applied. The radioactive material implanted in a person or animal for diagnostic uses or the treatment, if it is within the patient or within the animal, then also it will not be applied. The radioactive material in or and person transported for medical treatment after intake of contamination. When someone has taken the medicine and then he is moving around within the safe limits, so that is allowed. And the consumer products with the regulatory approval post sale to the end user. Certain products can be there which may have radioactive material, but it has got the approval from the regulatory authorities, so that can be used, and no regulations, transport regulations will be applied to these conditions. The natural material and the ores containing naturally occurring radionuclides process not exceeding 10 times the specified activity concentration value. If there are certain materials which are naturally occurring radioactive materials and concentration is very less, those can be transported without following these rules. The non-radioactive solid objects with radioactive substances on surface within defined quantity limit. If it is a non-radioactive solid object, but it has got certain contamination on its surface, and that is coming within the limits which are specified by these regulations. So if it is falling within that, then also these rules will not be applied. Now coming to the shielding, whenever we are sending some package that requires some shielding. So the shielding type can be of lead or it can be of tungsten. There are some, it can absorb those radiations and it will not allow beyond the limit to cross and expose certain other people. So there are different thicknesses and the different materials can be used for keeping those radioactive material within that containers. That can have different kind of shielding materials like tungsten and the lead. Primarily lead is used, but if the isotope has got a higher energy and higher quantity is being transported, that condition, tungsten can be used. We'll see why tungsten can be used. So once those are kept in that lead pots, those lead pots are again kept in some secondary packaging, because if that vial or if that radioactive contamination happens or if that vial is breaks down, in that condition the exposure should not be coming out, and some containment radiation exposure should have the packaging. Like see, this is the absorbent material is used in the packaging, see here also. So this packaging is kept inside this packing boxes so that secondary absorbent material is there if there is any leakage, and it can be contained within that. So once they are packaged, so that a small vial can be kept in such a big packaging. See, a small vial is kept in this much of big package once everything it becomes ready. So now we can see there are different labels are placed on these packages. So let's see what all the things are there on these labels. So here we can see it's a square shape uh, which has got a radioactive symbol, and it has the label of radioactive 2. The content means what the radioisotope it has. The activity means how much activity is there. There's something called 0.02 transport index and this 7. What the meaning of these all the things, why this radioactive symbol is having yellow and why this black. And now coming to this, it is a UN 2915. Why it UN 2915? Why not UN 2917? Or why not UN 001? That we are going to see. And so the different things we are going to discuss is the radioactive symbol, the radioactive 2, what is the transport index, UN number, and the meaning of 7. So let's see.